But I actually want to just touch on the terminology of Bitcoin Maxi. So I've been accused in the past of being a Bitcoin Maxi because I'm one of Bitcoin's biggest fans. I constantly talk about it and I constantly use it as my center of gravity when I'm doing anything on this show. However, I've got lots of altcoins and I've made a lot of money in the altcoin space, and I'm a huge fan of stacks. In the past, I've invested heavily in Ethereum and ADA, but I remember in the early days of getting into crypto, I remember when there was these Bitcoin maxis who just hated all the other coins. So on one hand, I can see Bitcoin has this, in many ways, it's kind of everything, but you've also got the opportunity to make stupid amounts of money in the other markets. And I always, in my book, 28 Pro Trader Tips Out of Trading, which I'll just plug there, I talk about don't discriminate against profits. But let's bring this back to you. You said you're absolutely a Bitcoin maxi, but you like stacks, because stacks is if you will, a layer 2 on Bitcoin. Is that fair to say? Hang on, we'll go back a step. What is it? What is a Bitcoin maxi? Are you a Bitcoin maxi? And if you are a Bitcoin maxi, how can you like other coins?
Yeah, so I believe a Bitcoin maxi, the definition of Bitcoin maxi is that Bitcoin is money, and very possible that it's the first actual discovery of real money. And because it's money, nothing else needs to be money. It's money and nothing else can compete with it. To me, that's what Bitcoin maximalism is all about. And, when Ethereum first came out, I bought Ether because I knew, man, I'm going to need this Ether to execute smart contracts. And those smart contracts that I'm executing are going to allow me to unlock the equity within my Bitcoin. So yeah, I want some Ether because it's a tool that I can use to unlock the value in my money. But now you look at Ether and it's like, well, we're money too. Well, no, you're not. So to me, a Bitcoin maxi is somebody who knows what Bitcoin is. It's money. It's the most pristine form of collateral in the world, and nothing can compete with it. That is the definition for me of Bitcoin money. And I also like to say this because this is one of my thesis as well. You always hear diversify, diversify, diversify. I think it's the opposite, actually. You concentrate to grow wealth and you diversify to preserve it. So right now we want to concentrate on Bitcoin to grow our wealth. And as your Bitcoin, you start out with that 3%, 5% allocation. Then when you figure it out, you're finally at like 60 and 70% allocations. And then over time, it naturally moves to the 99% allocation because of its growth. And once it starts to get to the point where it's 99%, now you can diversify. Now you can buy that farm. Now you can get that beach house. Now you can start to diversify because it's based on the benefits of your concentration. So I think this idea of like I want a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think that's a great way to lose. What we want to do is we want to concentrate on Bitcoin and let Bitcoin do the hard work, then diversify. Now, if we're going to go out the risk curve and we're going to say, yes, I'm going to do that, but where can I get a little bit more risk for a little bit more reward? Okay, so 60,000 to 600,000 or 60,000 to 6 million is not good enough for you. Let's see what else we can do. Well, let's stay concentrated on Bitcoin. Let's not fall into this diversification scam where I get a little bit and get Bitcoin here, a little. What if we're concentrating on Bitcoin? Comes right back to my DeFi thesis. What is complementing Bitcoin? What is making Bitcoin better, stronger? What's increasing the amount of use cases for Bitcoin? These are where you can take that extra bit of risk for that greater reward. Stacks being the perfect example. I don't buy Stacks because I think it's going to compete with Bitcoin as money. The developers who built Stacks know that it can't compete with Bitcoin as money. That's the difference between Stacks developers and Ether developers. Ethereum developers are like, well, we're money too. No, you're not. Stacks developers are like, we're not money and we can never be money. The only reason we're not a shitcoin is because we understand that we're not money and we're here to make Bitcoin digital collateral. We're here to evolve Bitcoin and create more use cases for Bitcoin. We're concentrated on making that Bitcoin wheel into not just a Bitcoin cart, but a Bitcoin tractor, something that is so productive and so useful, it strengthens what Bitcoin is. So when you concentrate on Bitcoin, even when you get out the risk curve and start getting into some of these altcoin ecosystems, if those ecosystems straight up admit we're not money, we're not competing with Bitcoin, we're here to complement Bitcoin, that's where I want to take my risk. I want to take my risk in an ecosystem that understands the role that it plays, not an ecosystem like Ether that's fighting for survival. It doesn't vibe. It doesn't go with what's happening here, which is Bitcoin being institutionalized as digital gold and evolving to digital collateral. And Stacks does that. Stacks helps bring Bitcoin to the next level. So my concentration remains on Bitcoin, but I take a little bit more risk to get that extra reward in an ecosystem that's designed to complement Bitcoin, not to compete with it.
Is Ethereum competing with Bitcoin?
I believe at this point, Ethereum developers, at least, believe they are competing with Bitcoin. That's why they go back.
Sorry, but when you're building on Ethereum, and I ask these questions out of ignorance, not out of challenging it. When I was under the impression that Bitcoin was the store of value, the base layer to, in my mind, what's going to be a global reserve currency and this perfect store of value. Now, whether we build on it and you can be a trader and you can use it with layer 2 solutions, I'm not really concerned about that. Where our values align is like the ultimate base layer to money. When we go into the Ethereum space, I'm seeing that as a supercomputer where you can build lots of different applications to do other stuff like smart contracts, like insurance is a probably good one for it. Is it possible that everything that we do on Ethereum in the smart contract space and DeFi and even shitcoins, if you want to say that, because it's a free market. If people want to build a Bonk or a Pepe, hey, it's a free market. Could all of that be done in theory on top of Bitcoin?
Yes, absolutely. And arguably that's exactly what's happening right now. Most of these ordinals are worthless. They're meme coins. But this is part of the process. And this is why a lot of people like, you should have been building this stuff like on Litecoin or something, right? Before you bring it to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the base. Like, you don't try something on Bitcoin, you try it elsewhere. And that's why you see these things implemented in other places before they eventually make their way to Bitcoin, because it has to pass through the testing grounds, so to speak, in order to make it to the big show, right? You don't just graduate. Very few people graduate high school and go pro. Most go college and get that extra experience. I mean, if you're a phenom, then sure. But for the vast majority of people, you go into college, and then if you're good in college, you might have a chance. That's kind of how I view it. Yes, there are different applications that I think Ethereum has a smart computer too. But after the switch from proof of work to proof of stake, what good is a smart computer if it can change its mind on what computation it just came up with? So I think that the security and the transaction finality risk that we see with Ethereum, that's plagued it since the Ethereum Classic problem, is because Ethereum Classic is the real Ethereum, and Ethereum was a fork to give back the coins. I believe in free market as well as you do. Well, that was free market, and then free market made fork, and Ether is the fork. But yet people today view it as the number one thing. So there's a lot of testing, there's a lot of experimenting going on, and a lot of that takes place when it's not directly attached to Bitcoin. But now that we're getting directly attached to Bitcoin, we are seeing the excitement in the ordinals. We are seeing a lot of wasted space, block space. It's been good for miners though, because fees, for the first time, fees were greater than block rewards. So that's pretty important, right? So there's pros and cons to everything. But to me, yes, there are applications, smart contract applications, but guess what? There's some really good software companies out there that have the same value proposition for a much lower cost. Ethereum gas is like really bad. Like just the other day, I think I paid like $300 to make a transfer on Ethereum.
And it was supposed to be fixed.
Right. So I could, if this is the thing, so if I was Ethereum, here's what I would have did. For every coin that you have, you get 1,000 more coins. Forget about this hard money narrative where, we need an inflation rate, and we need this, and we need an issuance rate, and we need this, and we got to try to be money. Blah, blah. I would have said gas fees are $100. No problem. That means we're going to do 1,000 to 1 split. If you got 1 Ethereum, you get 1,000 Ethereum. Well, guess what? Those gas fees would have went from $100 to 10 cents. And then all these L2s that exist right now wouldn't even exist, because the only reason they exist is because nobody could afford the fees on Ethereum except the biggest of players. So, you know, that's why you have the Avalanche. That's why you have these other L2s like Phantom that are trying to compete with Ethereum. But the only reason they can compete with Ethereum is because they have smaller transaction fees. If you bring that to Bitcoin, well, then there is no need. Why bridge to Ethereum and pay 10 times the amount in gas when I can be bridged to Stacks in a more secure way? So we're talking about security, we're talking about transaction finality, and we're talking about the economics, the underlying economics of cost structures. It's cheaper to run my business on a chain that's anchored in to Stacks through a proof of transfer algorithm than it is through an Ethereum proof of stake network, where every single entry I make is going to cost me anywhere from $6 to $600. I'm better off just customizing software and then using my custom software to run my business and keep track of those things. Why do I need the blockchain for it? You know, that's another thing. Like, some of these Bitcoin maxis are anti everything. I personally believe, you know, my company, People's Reserve, we're going to be a centralized company. If you want to come do business with us, come into my office, look me in my eyes, shake my hand, have a conversation with me, know who I am. You want to borrow money from me? Know who I am. I'd like to know who you are. Shake my hand. There's a place for that in this world. There's a place for human relationship. Not everything is just going to be computers talking to each other. Now, is there a place for that as well? Yeah, there is, especially with AI. How does AI communicate with each other? Well, with a base layer of money where profit incentives are driving that communication and the actions that are taken by it in the background. But human to human interaction is not going to disappear. I want to shake your hand. I want to look you in the eye, and I want to understand who my counterparty risk is. So I think there's a place in the world for centralized companies and decentralized ecosystems. And it's ultimately to do the opposite of what you were talking about before, what the banks do. The banks are designed to extract value, and real Bitcoin businesses and companies are designed to deliver value. Because in a Bitcoin world, if you're extracting value, you're not going to exist that long. You need to deliver value to earn those sats. You need to provide some type of solution for your customer's problem in order to profit. You're not going to be able to extract value from customers in a Bitcoin system. And that's where we're heading. And there's a place for centralized and decentralized solutions in that system.